Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I will be doing a review on Tyler Perry's Zatima Season 1, Episode number 10. Let's just get into it. So last video, I left off where Zac had knocked Bryce out basically, or down. Let me say that. He didn't knock him out, but he did punch him in when Bryce tried to kiss Zac. After Zac had multiple times told him at this point that Zac is not into men. He's not bi. He only is into women. And in particular, he's also in a relationship. But I don't know what was going on. Bryce ended up telling Zac basically, I don't know what this is, man. And he tried to kiss Zac and Zac knocked him out, dude. And so Fatima and Angela, remember, were on their way to see the building. And so they walk in and they see basically Zac, knocking him out. And so they come in and they what's going on? And so Bryce is trying to play it off. Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. Zac was just showing me a boxing move. And so, Angela and them was like, that y'all was playing. And so Angela walks over and she kisses Bryce. And she's like, hey, basically Fatima and I wanted to come over and see the place. I hope it was okay. And he's like, yeah, And so she's like, he's like, you want to see my office? And so she goes, yeah. And so they go into the office. And when they go into the office, Fatima is looking around and everything. She's like, yeah, Zac, this is really nice. And she looks to make sure the coast is clear. And she was like, you want to tell me what that was about? And so Zac is like, that dude just kissed me. And Fatima busts out laughing a little bit. She was like, what? And so she was like, so you hit him? And he was like, he kissed me. And she was just like, Zac, you is always in some BS. And let's keep it real. Zac does always find himself in something. And so Fatima's laughing and she's just like, okay, I guess this is what life is. And so anyway, she's still laughing. And he was like, you was laughing way too much about this. And she's like, well, you just calm down. And he was like, nah, dude, what's up with this? I just be minding my own business. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. And he's just like, and he gonna come up and she was like, he's like, how he gonna ask me if I'm bi? And I tell him no, and he kissed me. And so Fatima's just like, boy, just calm down. If this was a woman, it wouldn't be no big deal. And he was like, I don't care, Fatima, don't be doing that stuff. And then he was like, he got triggered. And she was like, triggered? And he was like, yeah, I was in jail. And so she was like, wait a minute, that happened? A dude kissed you in jail? And he was like, Fatima. So she was like, no, you the one who said triggered. And so she laughing again. And he was telling her, basically, you finding this way too comical. And so Bryce and Angela walk back out. And Bryce is like, I'm going to take Angela to eat. And so, dinner and stuff like that. Do you guys want to come? And so, Zac and Fatima, knowing that the situation is and what happened, they no. And so Zac is like, nah, I got the bubble guts. And so he was like, oh, okay. And so Angela's oh, okay, well, yeah, you go handle that. And so Fatima was just like, yeah. And so anyway, Bryce and Angela leave and it's just Zac and Fatima at the place. And, she's like, no, Zac, really, this is cool. And he was like, yeah, thank you. And she's still kind of laughing. And he was like, you brought your car, right? Because I'm not about to be riding home with you and you making jokes about, this situation. And so she was like, nah, she was like, no, I'm done. Really, I probably got maybe one or two more. And he was like, whatever. And so she basically just starts messing with him and chases him, making kissing noises and stuff. And so fast forward into the episode a little bit, they get to the house. They both are pulling up to the house and there's a woman sitting outside Zac and Fatima's house, and she has this bat in her hand. And so Fatima get out the car and she what's going on? And so the girl is going off you effing my man, right? And so Fatima was like, what? And so they, the girl going off of Fatima. And so Zac runs over and he's like, no, hold on. And so he's calling her by her name, which is Lori. He's like, Lori, just calm down. He's like, what's going on? She was like, I tracked Nathan's phone and he here. And he's sleeping with this B. And so Fatima was like, B, so everybody know from sisters that Fatima only has not laid hands on Karen for calling her out her name so much because she was pregnant and stuff like that. But she, just like most women, most people, ain't nobody cool with you calling them out their name and stuff. especially in contempt, right? Like, I don't know you is one thing, but then when you coming at me sideways, that's a whole nother thing. And so Fatima is like, you got one more time to tell me. And so she was like, or what? And so Fatima and Lori are going back and forth, and Zac is in the middle. And this probably was one of the funniest scenes in there, because Zac is literally trying to get them to stop arguing. And so he's jumping and he yelling and like, hey, like, come on now. Like, just hilarious. And so Zac finally gets Lori's attention. He's like, Lori, like, he not here. I'm telling you right now, like, let's go in the house and see. And so she's like, fine. So she walks to the door and he turns to Fatima, and Fatima was like, what's going on, basically? And he was like, that's Nathan's wife. And she was like, and she was about to assault me. And he was like, no, he just looking for Nathan. And she was like, Zac, no, I ain't playing with all this kind of stuff. You better get your people in order. Because, like, remember, like, this is season 1 of Zatima is right after season after season 4 of Sister. So remember, like, Fatima getting called bees by Karen, and now she getting called out her name by, Zac's dude's girl. Like, she's basically enough is enough. And so she's like, you need to get a hold of everything. He was like, okay, like, but can we just go in the house? And so they go in the house. And Lori looking all through the house and everything, and she walking through the kitchen, closing and slamming cabinet doors, and looking in the drawers and stuff. And then she goes walking to the living room. She knocked a pillow down, and Fatima was like, girl. And so she was like, so Zac was like, see, I told you you're not here. And she was like, well, can I go look upstairs? And so Fatima was like, as long as you ain't about to go mess up stuff like you did down here. Like, did you really think that the dude was in the cabinets and in the drawers? Like, really? And so Lori was like, well, I don't know. That's why I want to go look. So she goes upstairs, and again, Zac and Fatima are talking. And she's just like, what's going on? And she's like, Zac, you really need to keep, watch your company, who you keep company with. He's like, me? She's like, yeah. He was like, this ain't even about me, if I'm being honest. She was coming at you. Which, let me put a pin here. Zac, the only reason she there is because of you. So don't be trying to, like, put this all on Fatima and everything. Because if she wasn't with your dude who obviously don't respect you or your relationship, because there is no way that Nate should have brought this chick over to Zac and Fatima's house. But before, for those who may have not seen this, let me just get there first. So anyway, Lori comes back downstairs, and Fatima and Zac is like, ended a conversation, because he basically was like, I'll let her go upside your head. And she was like, and you'll be, and I'll be going upside yours too. And he was like, please, like, he was like, I wouldn't let her hit you. And she was like, yeah, whatever. And so anyway, Lori comes down, and she's like, I'm sorry. And so Fatima's looking, and she was like, Fatima tells her, that could have went real wrong for you, right? And so Lori was like, I said I was sorry. And so Fatima tells her, like, I'm about sick of your attitude. And then Lori goes, you know what? I'm sorry. He just really gets me, upset, like, what he doing. And so Fatima was like, well, you shouldn't be with somebody who treats you like that. And so she told Fatima, it's easy for you to say. And so for the most part, Lori must think that Zac is more faithful than Nate has been with her. Maybe not knowing that Zac does have a history of, well, I don't know. It's kind of back and forth, because it seems like every time, even though Zac seems to own up to the fact that he was sleeping with other women at times, it seems like in Sisters, some of the times, let me just say that he and her were were broken up, because remember, they had this on again, off again relationship for 3 years. Now, if he slept with anybody during that time that they were broken up, that's not technically cheating. That's not cheating at all. Y'all broke up. It's only cheating if you guys were together and, he cheated on you. And so, he went and slept with someone else. So anyway, with that being said, Lori must have some kind of thought process or idea that, Zac is faithful, because she was like, it's easy for you to say, Fatima. And so she was like, so Zac was like, okay, cool. So you good? So, do you need anything? Can I get you something before you go? So she was like, some water, please. And so he was like, okay. And so Fatima was like, I'll get some water. Why don't you open, the back door so she can get some air? And so he was like, okay, cool. And he tells her, like, don't put nothing in her water. And Fatima was like, boy, like, go open the door. And so Zac goes over to the back door. And of course, he sees Deja and Nate in his hot tub. And so Deja is all on Nate, dancing on him. Like, she giving him a lap dance in the jacuzzi and smoking and stuff like that. And this is why I say, Nate does not have respect for Zac or his relationship with Fatima. You know what I mean? Because there's no way he should have been bringing another woman over to Zac's house. You know what I'm saying? Zac had already told Nathan and Tony that he's serious about Fatima, that this not just some, random relationship or this chick that that will be gone in a minute, that he was into her. Now, they don't know that he's engaged yet, but he still made it clear that he's with her and she ain't going nowhere. So, and he still brings her over. So anyway, so Fatima is like, Zac, like, she hands Lori the water. She's like, Zac, open the door. Like, what you doing? And he was like, nah, like, I'm just going to turn on the air. And so Fatima's like, no, she needs some fresh air. And so she goes over, Fatima walks over to the door and she sees what's going on with Nate and Deja. And she was like, Zac, I am not about to, like, and they kind of having this kind of conversation back and forth, whispering, so Lori can't hear. And she's like, I'm not helping you. And she was like, that's his wife. And he was like, this is not our business and all that kind of stuff. And so she was like, no, I'm not helping you. And he was like, yeah. So he goes, okay, Lori. And he goes over to Lori. And he was like, Nate is, I'm going to make sure Nate call you. I'm going to get in touch with him and have him call you. He wrong for this kind of stuff. And he's like, give me a hug. And he walks her to the door, so she leaves. While he's walking her to the door, Fatima makes her way out the back door, and so she's coming down the stairs to the jacuzzi, and she kicks her shoes off, and she grabs Deja by her hair and drags her out the hot tub onto the ground and commences to pop her straight in the face. Like, and so Nate is caught off guard, because he wasn't expecting, first of all, nobody to be there, but definitely for Fatima to do that. And so she's, Fatima's in. She's like, what you doing in my backyard, B? Get out of here and don't you come back. And so Deja runs out. And so Nate is like, Fatima, like, basically, what's wrong with you? And she was like, what you doing with this chick back in my backyard? He was like, you need to mind your business. She was like, you made it my business when you brought it to my house. And he was like, this is Zac's house. And she was like, dude, this is my house. You see this ring? And she turns her hand over, and he was like, he proposed. And so she was like, yeah, he did. And he was like, so what? Like, that's just, like, basically, that's just, y'all just engaged, y'all not married yet. And she was like, so what? And so he was like, you need to mind your business. And so Fatima slaps the mess out of him. When she's slapping him, Zac is running down the stairs. He's like, no. And so Nate is going off, and Fatima is letting him have it. She was like, what you gonna do, dude? Huh? And so he's like, you need to get your chick. And so she's like, he was like, babe, what you doing? This is Zac talking to Fatima. And she was like, dude, he said you told him it was okay to have Deja back here. Did you say that? And he was like, I didn't say that. And so Zac is like scrambling for words because he's trying to defend himself, because basically Nathan is lying on him. He telling, Fatima that, it was okay for him to come over here, like Zac said it was okay, and he didn't. So anyway, so he gets Fatima to calm down. So Fatima goes back into the house, and she's going outside, and she's meeting up with Lori. And she's like, hey, Lori, but she caught Lori before she got in the car. She was like, come back in, girl. No, like, come back in, because Fatima is fed up. So she takes Lori. She's like, let's go around back. And Fatima goes, Lori goes, oh, that's his car. And so Fatima's like, oh, that's his car? So she's taking her around back. While she's taking her around back, Zac and Nate is talking. And he's like, man, why'd you tell her? Like, I told you that you could bring her. He was like, man, how we do. Like, so Zac is like, man, no. Like, so he's like really going off on him. And he was like, now get your stuff and go. And he was like, it's like that. Like, Nate is like all in his feelings about it. Like, it's like that. And he was like, I'm trying to help you. Zac is telling Nate, I'm trying to help you. Like, put your clothes on and go. And so Nate is like, dang, like, she got you all nervous like this and stuff. And he was like, dude, this ain't even about her. This is about you. I'm trying to help you. And so he was like, man, like, so he's rushing Nate. And so Nate finally gets ready to leave. And when they open the back door, it's Fatima and Lori. And he had just said something like to Zac, like he know how to handle, or to Fatima that he know, because Fatima comes back around and he's like, I know how to handle mine. And so, Lori, she pops him in the nose with a bat, and she's like, oh, handle me, mother effer, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, you broke my nose. And so she's going in, and Zac grabs the bat from Lori because it looked like she about to commence to whooping him. And so he's like, baby, I'm sorry. And so she runs like to outside the gate and everything. And so it's just Zac and Fatima. And so, you know, she's looking at Zac, and he's like, what? And she was like, your friends, dude. And he was like, me. And so she goes and she walks in the house, and they both get in the house and they sit down. And so he's like, you know, he's just like, you know, she's like, Fatima goes like, he grimy basically. And he was like, I know. And she was like, y'all be helping, helping each other and covering for each other. And he was like, no. And she was like, dude, you be helping him. And he was like, Fatima, I said no. And she was like, all right, well, I'm glad he got caught the way that he did then. And so Zac was basically telling Fatima like, we need to stay out their business. This ain't got nothing to do with us, and we got our own issues. And so Fatima was like, I know, and I'm sorry, but I just don't like that. And he was like, I know. And so Fatima was like, yeah, whatever. And so she was like, clean out my dang hot tub too. And so he was like, all right. And she was like, good. And so she goes upstairs, and she changes, and she comes back downstairs, and she gets a phone call from Angela. Angela basically is like, you know, hey, like, you good? And so she was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, how you doing? She was like, you know, good. So they chit chat, and she was like, you know, it's just like Bryce has been acting really funny again since we left. Like, did something happen? And so Fatima was like, why you think something happened? And she was like, cause he just being weird. And so Fatima trying not to tell her what she knows. And she was like, Angela, I just think you need to talk to Bryce. Like, why don't you ask him? And she was like, do you know something? And she was like, I don't know nothing. And she was like, Fatima. And so she was like, listen, they basically got into it. And so Fatima's still not trying to disclose fully what happened, but just like they got into it. And so she was like, well, what was it about? And so Fatima was like, again, Angela, like, ask your man. Like, and so Angela is like, we coming over to your house. Like, I just need some backup if I'm going to talk to him and have this conversation with him. Because Fatima's like, you just got to talk to him. Like, she's like, just ask him, like, babe, is you into, like, freaky stuff? Like, what? And so she goes, well, we coming over there. And Fatima was like, you have to give me a second and talk to Zac and everything. And so she's like, all right. And so Fatima hangs up, and she's on her way outside. While she's on the phone with Angela, Nate comes around, and he calls Zac, and Zac is like, you know, what's up, dude? And he was like, oh, I'm going to come through the house. And so Tony's like, nah, you're not. Zac is like, no, you're not, Tony, going to come through the house. Like, I'm in the backyard, come around. And this, again, is what I say about them not respecting his relationship with Fatima. This man live in a house with a woman. You can't just walk in his house. Like, I'm just saying, like, these are two people in a intimate and loving relationship. And if they want to, they can walk around the house bucket naked if they want to. So you just pop it up and walking in their house is not something that you have the availability to do anymore. So anyway, Zac tells him come around. So he comes around, and Zac is in the back cleaning out washing out the hot tub because like Fatima wasn't playing with that, right? So Nate comes in, and he's like, so did Nate tell you what happened? And he was like, yeah, he mad, man. And so Zac was like, tell me, like, why is Nate got the nerve to be mad? And he was like, man, like, real talk, Zac, you know, Nate been acting like this. Like, he been like this since we was in junior high. And so Zac said something real, good. He's like, and that's the problem. He was like, you know, he been acting like this since junior high, and then he do something, you laugh, and it's all fun and games. And he was like, y'all need to grow up. And so he's like, yeah, you're right. And so he was like, I'm sorry, man. And so Zac was like, I'm trying to do better, and y'all just doing too much. So he was like, you know, he had that girl over here at my house in my hot tub, and she been trying to get at me. And so, you know, Tony's like, oh, well, you know, what you think? Like, if I was you, I would get in that. And so Zac was like, you're not hearing me. Like, I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be a better dude. Like, I got this woman with me. Like, and he's explaining like his relationship, and he's like, you know what? Y'all got to go. And he basically was kind of telling Nate, like, I'm not doing y'all no more. And so Nate was like, nah, man, like, nah, don't do me like that. Like, this ain't on me. This on Nate. And so he was like, you know, you're right. Zac is telling Tony, you're right. You know, this ain't even nothing that you did. I'm just kind of taking it out on you. But y'all just really need to understand where I'm at and stuff. And so he was like, I got you. So he's like, let me help you wipe out the tub and stuff, the hot tub. And so while he's talking and helping Zac, Fatima's coming down the stairs, and she's like, you know, and so Zac looks, and he's like, what's up? up? And so she hands him a beer, and she tells, Tony, she's like, hey. And Tony's like, hey, how you doing? And she was like, you want a beer? And so Tony is like, yeah, like, heck yeah. And so Zac kind of looks at him like, nah, man. And so he goes, oh, never mind. You know what? I'm on a cleanse and I better go ahead and go. So he leaves, and basically it just leaves Zac and Fatima talking. And so Zac tells Fatima, like, the hot tub is clean. She was like, I see. And she was like, good deal. And so he was like, okay, cool. So he looks at her and he was like, you all right? And she was like, yeah, you? And he was like, yeah. And so she was like, okay. And so he goes, she goes, so Angela called, and he was like, all right. And so she was like, well, she want to know if her and Bryce can come over. And he was like, what? Like, for what? And she was like, they want to talk about what happened today. And so he was like, nah, I ain't into that, Fatima. So she was like, Zac. And he was like, Fatima, no. So she was like, Zac, like, come on. She was like, you not really mad at him about this, are you? And he was like, no, Fatima, I'm not mad at him, but I just need some time. Like, he basically disrespected, and I just need some time before I have this kind of conversation with him. So she was like, okay. And she was like, but do you like him? And he was like, Fatima. She's like, no. Like, I'm not playing. Like, I told you, the last time was really the last time for me joking. I'm actually saying, like, do you like him? He seems to be a really good business contact for you. And she's just, telling him like real stuff, like real logic. And so he's like, yeah. And so she was like, okay. And that's what I'm saying. And so he was like, so he just kept talking to her. And she was like, you're not going to stop. And he goes, you're not going to stop until I say yeah. So go ahead and invite him over. She's like, okay, cool. So we in agreement. And he was like, we in agreement. And she's like, yeah. So, okay, cool. So she leaves it's to call Angela, and she leaves Zac. And so Zac is like staying downstairs, with the hot tub. Fatima gets into the kitchen to call Angela, and she gets a phone call from, I forgot the lady's name, but I think it's like Kelly or something at the law office, who was giving her the results. Remember earlier, she had asked her like when the DNA results were going to come in. So she was calling her to tell her that, hey, Fatima, I just didn't want to let you know that the results came in and I emailed them to you. So Fatima was like, cool. So she was like, all right, have a good weekend. She hangs up the phone, and she was like, well, guess depending on what these results say, will let us know if we about to have a good weekend or not. So she goes, Fatima goes back outside, and she's like, hey. And so he was like, what they say? And she was like, I didn't call him. And he was like, why not? Like, just a minute ago, you was all down my throat, like, about them coming over. And she was like, the test results came back. And he was like, oh, cool. Like, bet, let's do this. And she was like, yeah, the test results about your little baby, stripper baby mama. And she was like, you got a thing for strippers because you got one over here. And then now he was like, nah. He was like, so after these results is read, you going to have to quit bothering me and coming at me with this stripper thing. She was like, okay, cool. So he goes, all right. And so he was like, let me see. She's like, nah, I'm going to do this. So she opens the result. He goes, and she looks at him. And he was like, I don't care if it's even like, that is not my baby. And she looks at him, and she was like, Zac, I wish that was true. And so she turns the phone over to him so he could see the results. And she's like 99.9%. And so, and then the episode ends. So that's pretty much the end of the episodes, number 10 of Zatima. And that was the first season, and they only did 10 episodes for the first season, which is kind of like what Tyler does when he's bringing out a new show. He launches like either 8 to 10 episodes just to see how it's received, and then they'll go into it. So let's just get into it. So what did you think about this particular episode? It definitely had its moments, comical moments with, like I said, even with Fatima joking with Zac at the law office about Bryce kissing him and just being like, you always in something. Like, you just like, she's just been with him for this short period of time, but it's been so much. And so she just like, you always in some stuff. And so she's like, okay, like, I guess this is life. So, I thought that was interesting and cute, but absolutely a real moment where she acknowledged, like, you just seem to always kind of fall into some stuff. And so, and then, what did you think about, like I said, with Nate taking Deja over to her house, to Zac's and Fatima's house? Like, that was so disrespectful on so many levels. Like I said, it's like him and Tony did not, really respect what he was saying, or his relationship. Zac, what I mean by saying what Zac was telling them, Zac has been telling them since he told them about Fatima that she the one. This is the one. Y'all ain't got to keep coming at me because I know she it. Like, I ain't about to leave her, so y'all can quit talking. Like, this whole time, this whole season, he's been double downing with them that she's it. And here they are. He brings over this chick to her house. And you know what I'm saying? He's acting, Nate brings Deja not just over to her house, but in a hot tub, like screwing and stuff. Like, really? Like, what is you doing? And just so disrespectful. And then Tony, when he called Zac, where you at? He was like, I'm in the backyard. Oh, I'm going to come through the house. Again, this man is in a full-blown relationship where he is living with this woman. She not just staying a night. She lives there. And they know this. And you still talking about just walking in the house. So, again, just a level of disrespect to their relationship is one thing that I did not like about his friends. And then what did you think about how Fatima was trying to have Angela handle her own stuff? So I'm going to be real honest. I understand a lot of people don't like confronting things. I run into that a lot, and I've dealt with it in my own past and things like that. But it's just certain things that you just can't skate around to the point where, in all honesty, you just will, you are always going to have to confront something in life. And so with that being said, when I'm talking to my friends, when I'm talking to employees that work for me and things like that, even my nieces and stuff, I'm really trying to help them get to a place where they understand you can't skirt confrontation. It's going to happen. Now, you don't have to be nasty about it, but you do have to confront certain situations and topics and subject matters that come up in life, and whether it be your, intimate relationship with your man or sisterhood relationships, sister relationships. Like, you have to be able to have those conversations, and a lot of people skirt towards them. So, but I do like it was, Fatima was like, well, I'll be there. I don't know about Zac, but I can be there to help you kind of, give you some moral support. But so let me know what you guys think about that. I did think that was cool of Fatima, but that was definitely something that Angela should not have wanted an audience for if she was really into this dude. And just especially because, I just don't know what I'm gonna do. You know what I mean? Like, in all honesty, having an audience for that kind of a topic is just that's just different to me. I feel like it's a little bit disrespectful to the relationship, and obviously she is not into it if he is, but it's still a better way to do it than doing it in front of your best friend and her dude, a dude who he, and she don't know any of this, but you also don't want to see what happened and ask your dude what happened. So you not really understanding the fullness of it, but you do know him and Zac just got into it, and you still want to go over there and have this really uncomfortable conversation. So I don't think that was cool of Angela, but hey, to each his own. And then the test results, of course, coming in at the end of it. But, that was cool. Tony and Zac's conversation was interesting just because Tony seems to be who he was, and in this part. Now, again, I'm really caught up on everything, so Tony does change his actions a little bit, but in season 1 he was just the biggest follower ever, and I honestly did not think that was cool, because again, these men are like supposedly in their mid-30s, and you guys are still acting like junior highs. You can't think on your own, like, you know what I'm saying? So that was what I didn't like about it. And I do understand some people really still act like that in their 30s and 40s, and some maybe even in their 50s, but when you are trying to, better yourself and things like that, and you still have these friends or these friend groups, that are, still living in that lower level of life, so to speak. And I don't mean it disrespectfully. I just mean like you still trying to live like you was when you were 20, and, you're not in high school no more. You're not a 20-year-old anymore. You are 35-ish, almost 40, or going into your 40s. It's time to mature and, put some responsibility and roots down, and, that kind of stuff. So anyway, let me know what you thought about the episode, and we will go ahead and end it here. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the comments. I will be putting out, starting the reviews on Zatima season 2, either later this weekend or probably early next week. All just depends on what my schedule looks like. But anyway, let's get into the conversation. See you soon. Bye.